Welcome back to the Sleeman Center here in the first intermission. A 2-0 lead, Flint Firebirds over the Guelph Storm. Storm fans, a good chance, I want to say, to have a look if the fans are actually here tonight to see a couple of new players here for the Guelph Storm. You know, joining me now is Ryan Drury. Ryan, a quieter trade deadline this year, I think with good reason, being the uniqueness of this season. However, one big move we did see was Mason McTavish going to the Hamilton Bulldogs, and I believe it's Mark Paré. Join me.
Yes, it is. And I mean, Mason McTavish, what a beauty. I mean, coming back from the Anaheim Ducks, he lit it up for the Peterborough Petes before moving over for a coup of picks over to the Hamilton Bulldogs. And I mean, I think the Hamilton Bulldogs probably made the biggest splash of this trade deadline, not only acquiring Mason McTavish, but also acquiring Arbor Jackeye from the Kitchener Rangers as well. Declan McDonald, of course, moving over from Kitchener to Barrie, as well. As we saw on Sunday, the Rangers, it seemed obvious they're more of a seller in this trade market, this trade deadline. The Guelph Storm, more of a buyer as they try to make a push for the playoffs. Only a point behind the London Knights for top spot in the Midwest Division. But I mean, the biggest splashes I found were mostly in the Eastern Conference. I mean, the Western Conference, it's not to say that they were quiet, Trevor, but yeah. I do believe that it was the Eastern Conference that really did a lot of the buying here.
Well, we usually see the Western Conference over the past decade being sort of the domineering conference in terms of its play in this league, so maybe the East thinks it's this turn this year. But, you know, for the Guelph Storm, they made big splashes, obviously, in 2019 with some big-name players coming from the Owen Sound attack. You know, this year, though, I like the moves. It feels a little bit like house money this season with these young players, and yet we see the offense, we see the record that the Storm have this year, but I thought very shrewd moves, bringing over some veteran players from the Sarnia Sting.
Yes, and I mean, Braden Guy already starting to make an impact. It's already, you know, and that's the thing. When you're a new player coming on to a new team, it's trying to find that identity, trying to find where you fit in this organization. And I find Braden Guy is already starting to establish himself as that net front presence. He's doing it on the power play. He's doing it on even strength. He's able to work the puck in behind the net as well. One of the leaders on the Sarnia Sting, of course, he was the captain for that team for a little while. Now brings that leadership, brings that experience over to the Guelph Storm. And I mean, Ashton Reese are coming along with him as well. And I mean, of course, you did have to pay the price of Marco Sikic and as well as a draft pick, but it is a small price to pay to try and bring that experience. And I mean, overall, when you think about just the overall landscape of the OHL, when you think COVID in mind, do you think about the long-term future of this league as well? And I mean, that is on the top of the mind of GMs as well when they're trying to make these moves as well. I mean, do you think to next year? I mean, are we going to have to deal with some of this stuff a year from now? Hopefully not, but at the same time too, I mean, it's still in the front of your mind where you think, you know, can we try to recoup maybe some picks from the previous year that we lost in the season, and then even going into next year as well. I mean, you pay a little bit to try and get a lot here and try to make a run here in the Memorial Cup, because it seems like no matter what's going to be happening, there's going to be a Memorial Cup this year. Mark my words, the CHL is going to make it happen. And the Guelph Storm making moves. They're not, as you said, not as flashy as, you know, acquiring a Nick Suzuki from the Owen Sound attack, but at the same time too, they're just enough to try and make that extra push. You think about the London Knights, they were relatively quiet, but they didn't have to be a big mover on the trade market. I mean, they were able to get Logan Mailloux, of course, a controversial Montreal Canadiens prospect coming in from that indefinite suspension, and also Kirill Steklov working that back line as well. They didn't have to make any moves to actually acquire those players, and that's pretty much going to be your trade deadline if you're the London Knights. So, I mean, they're making a push. The Guelph Storm making a push as well. It's going to be interesting to see what things look like down the stretch, especially for those two teams.
Mark, it seems like it's all bonus season here for Storm fans. This was one that was going to be young kids potentially learning the game, learning the OHL, and here we might get a decent playoff run. Mark, always thanks for your thoughts here on the trade deadline. Please stay with us. We got more of the first coming up. This is Guelph Storm Hockey on Rogers TV, brought to you by Mark Wilson's Better Used Cars.